We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Amud Aleph in Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 50a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara had a case where a person sold land. He was thinking that he was going to move to Eretz Yisrael. In the end, he decided not to move to Eretz Yisrael, so he wanted to go back on the sale of his land. And he did not state explicitly that he was selling this land with the understanding that he was going to Eretz Yisrael. It was just something that was in his mind. And so Rava says that's Devarim Shebelev. Those are things that are in the heart, they're in the mind, and that's Einam Devarim, that does not count. He's not able to go back on the sale. And the Gemara said, from where do we see this idea that Devarim Shebelev Einam Devarim? The Gemara brings the following brisa. The pasuk says Yaakov also, talking about bringing a carbon ola. Melamed Shekofin also. This teaches that we force him. Rashi says Yaakov also Kro Yiserahu. That's an extra pasuk. Taksib Bereisha Dekra Zochar Tamim Yakrivenu. It already says you're going to bring a male with no blemishes. Shekofino, so we force him to bring the carbon, meaning Lakayim Divrei Nidro. Let's say he made a neder. Let's say he made an oath to bring the carbon. We would force him to fulfill his neder. And the brisa continues, Yochel Bal Karchan. I might think we do it against his will. Talmud Lomer Lirtzona. The pasuk says that it has to be with his will. It has to be willingly. Haketzad how so? Kofino so at Shiyoma Rotzani. We force him until he says Rotzani, until he says I want to. And so the Gemara says, V'yamai, now why should that be good? In his heart, he doesn't really want to bring it. So he's saying Rotzani, but Dvarim Shebelev, that which is in his heart, is he doesn't want to bring the carbon. Elalav Mishum Damrin and Dvarim Shebelev. And Dvarim, isn't it because we say that when you have Dvarim Shebelev, matters of the heart, that doesn't count. The fact is he says Rotzani, and that's why it's good. But the Gemara says not necessarily. V'dil mashani also, maybe it's different over there by the bringing of a carbon da'anon sahadi denichole bekapora. Because we are witnesses, we know that he wants the kapora, we know that he wants to bring it, and so therefore in that situation we would say even though in his heart he doesn't want to, but really he does want to. Really he wants the kapora. And the Gemara continues, Ela miseifa, maybe we can bring from the end, meaning to say we can bring from the end of the very same brisa. So the brisa continues, V'chenat hamotze b'gidei noshim the same is true when it comes to a gerisha, to a divorce document, or to freeing of the slaves. We force him to do it until he says rotzani. And again, it's the same idea. It's a situation where the chachamim feel, let's say, that he has to give a get to his wife, and he says rotzani, but again, the Gemara says v'amai, why should that be good? But in his heart, he doesn't really want to. And so therefore, elalav mishum damrin, and devarim shebelev, and devarim isn't it because we say that matters of the heart, they don't count for anything. And the Gemara says, v'dil mano, maybe shani hasam, it's different over there, mishum de mitzvah lishmoa divrei chachamim, because it's a mitzvah to listen to what the chachamim say, and so therefore really even in his heart, he really wants to listen to the words of the chachamim. And Rashi says, the mitzvah lishmoa divrei chachamim v'islan la'achzuke b'cheskas mekayim mitzvah, we should presume that he wants to be mekayim the mitzvah. V'gomer believe l'kayim divrei bezdin, that really in his heart, he wants to do what Bezdin tells him. And the Gemara continues, Elamar of Yosef, rather of Yosef says, Mehacha, we learn it from here, from the following, HaMekadesh es Isha, let's say a person is Mekadesh, a woman, V'yomer, he says, Kasavar ha'yisi she kohenes, I thought that she was a kohenes, V'arehi Leviah, and turns out she's actually a Leviah, or Leviah v'nimtzes kohenes, or I thought she was a Leviah, turns out she's a kohenes, Aniya v'arehi Ashira, I thought she was poor, it turns out she's rich, Ashira v'arehi Aniya, I thought she was rich, it turns out she's poor, Mekudeshes, in all of those cases, it's a good Kiddushin. Why? The reason why it's a good Kiddushin is because she never misled him. That's what he thought, but she never said that. And the Gemara says, V'yamai, but again, why should that be good? Haka'amar, isn't he saying, Kisavar ha'yisi, that I thought as follows, and so therefore we should say, Devarim shebelev. Elamishum damrin, and rather isn't it because we say, Devarim shebelev, ain't on Devarim, that the matters of the heart, that doesn't really count. The fact that he says that's what he thought at the time of the Kiddushin, that's not going to make it a bad Kiddushin. But the Gemara says, Amar le Abaya, Abaya said to him, this is Abaya responding to Rav Yosef, Dil Mashani also, maybe it's different over there, the Lachumra, there we're just being Chumra, in other words, there we're just being Machmir, in other words, we're just being strict. We're saying that in such a situation, it's Mikudeshes, we have to be strict, that maybe this is a good Kiddushin. Rashi says, Shani Yosem de Lachumra, Kalomar Ika Lameimar, Dehad Detani Mikudeshes Lachumra Kamar. We can say that which it says Mikudeshes, it just means to say Mikudeshes, we have to be strict, that maybe it's a Kiddushin. She'ena Muteres La'acher, below get, that she's not allowed to marry someone else without a get. Avol Kiddushin Gemurim lo have it, but it's not going to be a full Kiddushin. Levatel Kiddushin Acherim, that we should say that if a later Kiddushin comes along, that's not a Kiddushin Shelo Yitvas, but that won't be effective. Shem Ba'acher v'kitshut tzricha get af misheni. If a second person would come and be Mekadesher, she would need a get from the second individual as well. And so therefore, again, you're talking here about a situation where it might just be a Chumrah. It's not necessarily a proof that Devarim Shebelei Veinam Devarim. And the Gemara continues, Alamer Abaya, rather Abaya says, Mehacha, the proof is from here, from the following, Bekula mafal pisha amra belibi haya le'eskadish lo, in all of these cases, even if she says, I don't care, let's say it's a situation again where she was misled, even if she says, I don't care, I wanted the Kiddushin anyway, afal pichein eina mikudeshes. Nevertheless, it is not considered to be a good Kiddushin, and that's a leniency over here. We're saying it's not a Kiddushin, we're being lenient. V'amai, so why are we saying it's not a Kiddushin? Haka amra belibi haya, she's saying that in my heart, I really wanted to have a Kiddushin, we should say it is a Kiddushin. And so therefore, again, you see that Dvarim Shebelei Veinim Dvarim. But the Gemara says, V'dil Mashani Hasa, maybe it's different over there. The Kevan Da'asne Lav Kol Kamina the Akra Loli tonight. Because since there was a condition, he made a condition, so she can't go ahead and uproot that condition. And Rashi explains, Kevan Da'asne, since the man made the condition, Shapirish to know Befiv, that he made that condition out loud at the time of the Kiddushin, Lav Kol Kamina L'mi'akar to know B'dvarim Shebelev, she can't say, well, in my heart, I really wanted a Kiddushin anyway, she can't uproot that condition, Hoel V'shama V'lo Michsa, since she heard the condition, and she didn't protest at the time, Lo Marafa Pichein, Ani Chafetza Bach, she didn't say, nevertheless, I don't care about the condition, Kadeh Shosi B'li Tanai, let's have a Kiddushin without a Tanai. She didn't say that, so she can't later come along and undo such a condition. And the Gemara continues, Alamar Rav Chia Baravin, rather Rav Chia Baravin says, Uvda Hava Bei Rav Chisda. There was an incident like this by the yeshiva of Rav Chisda Bei Rav Huna, and Rav Chisda brought it to the yeshiva of Rav Huna, Upashtua Meha, and they answered it from the following. This is from a Mishnah in Me'ilah. The halacha by Me'ilah is that if a Balabayas tells a Shliach to do something, and that which the Balabayas told the Shliach to do is a misuse of hektish, it's a misuse of consecrated property, so in that situation it's actually the Balabayas who committed the Me'ilah. By Me'ilah we don't say, Ein Shliach Lidvar Avera, we say no, there is shlichus, there is agency when it comes to Me'ilah, and therefore so long as the shliach did what the Balabayas told him to do, it's the Balabayas who committed the Me'ilah. And so the Mishnah says, Ha'omer l'shlucha, if somebody says to his shliach, Havei li min hachalon, or min hadliskima, bring it to me, it's by the window, or it's by the box, and the items that are being brought, that are being used, that happen to be hektish, v'hevilo, and the shliach does exactly what he's told, he brings it to him. Afa b'shamar Balabayas, even though the Balabayas says, Lo haya li belibi ela al zeh, I wasn't thinking you should bring this, I was thinking something else. Kevan shehevilo mizeh Balabayas mal, but if the shliach did what he was told to do, it's the Balabayas who committed the Me'ilah. And so the Gemara says, V'amai, why should it be that the Balabayas committed Me'ilah? Hakamar, isn't he saying, believe me that in my heart I was thinking something else? Elalav, rather is it not? Mishum da'amrinan devarim shebelei veinan devarim. It's because we say that if something's in the heart that doesn't count, the fact of the matter is he told him to get the items which were hektish, and that's why it's Me'ilah. And so therefore you see from here, devarim shebelei veinam devarim. But the Gemara says, how do you know? V'dil mashani hasa, maybe it's different over there. By the case of the Me'ilah is different. To lemiftar nafshe mi karban kasi, maybe he's actually just lying. He's trying to get himself out of bringing a carbon. He's saying, I intended you to bring something else, but we can't trust him. Maybe he's just trying to get out of the carbon. The Gemara says, no, if he was only trying to get out of the carbon, there was an easier way to do it. Havalei l'meimar mezid have. He could have just said that I was doing it on purpose. You only bring a carbon in a situation of shogeg. The Gemara says, no, he wouldn't have wanted to say that. Lo avidinish demashvi nafshe rishia. A person doesn't want to make himself a rasha, and so therefore he's not going to say that it was b'mezid. So again, maybe he's just saying this in order to get out of the carbon, and therefore you can't bring a proof of devarim shebelei veinam devarim. The Gemara says, no, there was an alternative. He could have said something else. Havalei lomar nizkarti. He could have said, I remembered, I realized after I sent to you that really it's something of hektish. Ditnan, as we learned in the Mishnah, and some have Ditanya, as we learned in a Braisa. Nizkar Balabayas, if the Balabayas remembers, v'lo Nizkar Shliach, and the Shliach doesn't remember, so in that case, Shliach Mal, it's actually the Shliach who commits the Me'ilah, so he could have just said Nizkarti, he could have said, I remember that was hektish, and that would have gotten him out of the Me'ilah, and instead it would have been the Shliach who committed the Me'ilah, so there was something else to say, and therefore we can believe him when he says, my mind, I had intention on something else. But you see that Devarim Shebelei Veinam Devarim, the fact that he says he was thinking about something else, that does not make a difference. And Rashi explains, Nizkarti Lachar Shalachta Lotzia, meaning after you went to get it, Bashuk in the marketplace, so then I remembered, Bishlichusi Nizkarti Shem Shal Hektish, then I remembered that it was really Hektish Kodem Shotzeisu before you took it, Shliach Mal, so in that situation, since the Balabayas remembered before the Shliach actually committed the Me'ilah, it's the Shliach that's considered to have committed the Me'ilah, Ubalabayas Potter, and the Balabayas is Potter, the Kevan Shenizkar, since he remembered, Lo Shkoga Hi Gabe, it's not a Shkoga, it's not a mistake by the Balabayas, O Shliach Chayiv, and it's the Shliach that's Chayiv, Shotzi Mos Hektish L'chulin. He spent the money of Hektish and he used it for Chulin. He used it for mundane purposes. Ve'ilu lo nizkar balabayis. Now, if the balabayis had not remembered, have a ramya me'ilah lei. So then the me'ilah would be on the balabayis. This Rabbi shliach limol sholchal yadu. As we said, when it comes to me'ilah, shliach is able to make the mishaleach that he's the one that's chayiv in me'ilah b'reish pirkin. That's what we say in the beginning of the parak. Aval hashta di iftar balabayis ramya me'ilah shliach. But now that the balabayis is potter because he remembered, so then the me'ilah actually does go on the shliach kechol haTorah kula, like we find in the rest of the Torah by all other halachas. Dein shliach lidvar aveira. In general, we say ein shliach lidvar aveira, except by me'ilah if the balabayis committed the me'ilah. But if the balabayis is getting out of it now, so then the shliach would commit the me'ilah. Va'osahu mischayev, the one who actually does it, meaning the shliach, he's the one that's chayev. And the Gemara continues, Hahu gavra de zavninu l'nichse adaita l'mesak la'arad Yisrael. There was a man who sold his property on the understanding that he was going up to Eretz Yisrael. Solik v'lo Yisrael, he went up to Eretz Yisrael, but he wasn't able to settle in Eretz Yisrael. Amar Rava says, called the Solik adaita l'meidru, anyone who's going up to Eretz Yisrael, the idea is that it's on the intention to settle there. V'halo Yisrael, he wasn't able to settle there, and so therefore he's able to retract on the sale. He can say, I sold my property with the understanding I would live in Eretz Yisrael. Now that I can't live there, I can go back on the sale, I can get back my old property. The Gemara says, Ika di'amri, there are those that have another version of what Rava said, adaita l'mesak, that all he meant was, on the condition that I go up to Eretz Yisrael. V'asalik, and he did go up to Eretz Yisrael, and so therefore in such a situation, according to this version, he's not able to go back on the sale. And the Gemara continues, how Gavra de Zavninu l'nichse adaita l'mesak l'Eretz Yisrael. There was a man who sold his property on the understanding that he was going up to Eretz Yisrael. L'sof lo salik. In the end, he didn't go up to Eretz Yisrael. Amar Rav Ashi said, he boy salik, but if he wanted to, he could go up to Eretz Yisrael, and therefore he's not able to retract. He is able to go up to Eretz Yisrael if he wants. And Ika di'amri, there are those that have a different version of what Rav Ashi said. Rav Ashi said, Iboy lo salik, if he wanted to, he's not able to go up to Eretz Yisrael. Is there something holding him back? And the Gemara says, "My beinayu." What's the difference between the two versions? Ika beinayu disyalid onsa beorcha. The difference is, let's say some kind of onus is holding him back. So in the second version of Rav Ashi was saying, if he wanted to go up, is there anything holding him back? As long as anything is holding him back, that's enough that he can say that he wants to go back on the sale. But according to the first version, Iboy Solik means if he wants, he's able to go up. Just because something happened, that doesn't mean he can't find a way to work around that and go to Eretz Yisrael, and so therefore he's not able to retract on the sale according to the first version. And Rashi explains, in these cases, the person is actually explaining, it's not just Devarim Shebelev, he's saying out loud that it's on that understanding, V'lo Istar, but he didn't settle there, V'lo Yachal Loder, he wasn't able to live there, O Misham Chisar Mezonos, maybe he didn't have food, O Lo Matzadira, he didn't find a place to live, V'halo Mister Le, so according to the first version, he didn't actually live there, V'havale Kamandalo Matzi Lamesak, that's as if he didn't even go up there, he wasn't able to, V'hadar Zvini, and therefore he's able to retract on the sale. And then we had two versions of Rav Ashi. Iboy Havisalik, the first version was that if he wanted, he could have went up to Eretz Yisrael. Uvididei Kaimamil said something that he's able to do. V'lo badlasvina, he can't say that he wants to nullify the sale. And the other version was Iboy Lo Salik, if he wanted to, he's not able to go up. Bitmi Amion, so what onus is there? Why wasn't he able to go up? And the difference in the versions is this Yalad Leon Saborcha, let's say on the way there was something that was preventing him from going. Let's say Shamu Shayu Listim Bederech, so he heard there were robbers on the road. Lelish Nakamalo Adrinan Zvina, according to the first Lashon, so he's not able to retract the sale. Da'achi Kamar, Diboy Lim Mitrach Ulahadure Basar Shayrasa Havisalik. He could have taken the bother and found some way to go. After the caravan, he would have found some way to make his way to Eretz Yisrael, and as long as he had some way to get to Eretz Yisrael, he can't go back on the sale. But according to the second version, to come there he's asking, is there anything holding him back? That sounds like nothing is holding him back. But if there is something holding him back, that's enough to say that the sale can be retracted. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ha'omer l'shlucho tzei v'kadesh li isha plonis b'makom ploni. If a person says to his agent, go and be mekadesh for me a woman, such and such a woman in such and such a place, v'halach v'kitsha b'makom acher, and he goes ahead and he's mekadesh her, but it's in a different location. Eina mekudeshes, that's not a good kiddushin. Harei b'makom ploni, but if instead he says, she is to be found in that particular place, v'kitsha b'makom acher, and then he goes and he's mekadesh her in a different place, hareizu mekudeshes, that is considered to be a good Kiddushin, and the idea is that in the first case of the Mishnah, he specifically wants the Kiddushin to be in that place, but in the second case of the Mishnah, the idea is he's telling the Shliach where he can find the woman, but it doesn't have to be that the Kiddushin is in that particular place. And the Gemara says, "Utanan nabi gabe gittin." We have a Mishnah that's similar by gittin. Ha'omer tenu get zel ishti b'makom ploni. If he says, "Give the get to my wife in such a place," v'nasnu lava makom acher, and instead he gives it to her in a different place, pasul, that is pasul, because again the person wants that the get should be given in that specific location. Harehi b'makom ploni. But if he says she can be found in that location, v'nasnu lava makom acher, and then he gives it to her in a different location, kosher, that's going to be kosher, because again then he's just telling the agent where to find his wife. It doesn't mean it has to be given in that particular place. And the Gemara says, "Utzricha, we need to have a Mishnah by Kiddushin and also a Mishnah by Gittin. Diashminan gabe Kiddushin, because if we only had the Mishnah by Kiddushin, b'makom de lakurva kaasi, that's a situation where he's trying to bring her close to him. B'hai asra, so in one particular place, rachmuli, they like me, v'lo mamli mili alavi, they're not going to say things against me. But b'hai asra, but maybe in that other location, sanuli, they hate me, mamli mili alavi, they're going to say things against me. And so that's why maybe I would say by Kiddushin, the person is makbid. Aval gabe Gittin, but I might think that by Gittin, where he's distancing her from him, I might say he doesn't really care where the divorce takes place. And if I only taught you the case by Gerushin, maybe in one location it's okay for him to be degraded. It's a degrading thing to give a get, but maybe in another place it's not. He doesn't want that he should give the get in that place. It's degrading. But by Kiddushin, maybe there I would say he doesn't care exactly where the Kiddushin is. And so that's why it's tzricha, that's why we need the Mishnah to say by both Gittin and Kiddushin. If the person says do it in a specific location, he's makbid that it be in that location. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, ha-mekadesh es-ish, if somebody's mekadesh, a woman al-menash she'eino le nedarim, on the condition that she's not bound by oaths, v'nimtzu ale nedarim, it turns out that she does have nedarim, she does have oaths, eino mekudeshes, that's not a good Kiddushin. The Kiddushin was on condition that there's no nedarim, and there are nedarim, and so therefore it's not a good Kiddushin. Kinsa stam, now let's say he just marries her stam, he doesn't have any conditions. V'nimtzu ale nedarim, it turns out that she has nedarim on her, so in that situation, really, maybe it wouldn't be a Kiddushin, but they didn't specify, he didn't say that the Kiddushin was on that condition, and so therefore, teitze shelo b'ksuva, therefore that she should be divorced. She actually should receive a get in that case, but she will not receive her ksuba. Al-menashe ino le'amumin, let's say he marries her on the condition that she has no blemishes, v'nimtzu b'amumin, it turns out she does have blemishes, eina mekudeshes, again, that's not going to be a Kiddushin, but kinsa stam, but if he just marries her with no conditions attached, v'nimtzu b'amumin, and it turns out she has blemishes, so again, teitze shelo b'ksuba, she should be divorced, she should receive a get, but she will not receive the ksuba in that case. And the Mishnah says, Shekol hamumin haposlim b'kohanim, all blemishes that disqualify a kohen, poslim b'noshim, they also disqualify in terms of marriage. That would be considered a mum, that again, if they made the condition, then that would not be a good kiddushin, and if they didn't make the condition, even if they didn't make the condition, but there was such a mum, she would be divorced without the ksuba. And Rashi explains, Teitze shelo b'chsuba, she's divorced without a ksuba. Diyamar yefshi b'isha nadronis. The point is, he can say, I don't want to marry a woman who takes nedarim like this. Avol gita boy midivreihim. But Rashi says, the get is needed, that's midrabanan. Misveika, because there's a doubt over here. We don't know for sure whether it was a good kiddushin or not. He never made that condition. Kevin de lo parish, since he didn't say outright that it can't be a woman with nedarim. Dilma daite nami an nadronis. Maybe when he had the kiddushin, he was thinking also that the kiddushin should be good, even if the woman is a woman who's a nadronis, who takes these oaths upon herself. Haposlim b'kohanim, and any blemishes that disqualify by a kohen, that also counts in terms of kiddushin as a blemish, mefurashim b'bechoros, all of those blemishes are explained in Meseches bechoros. And the Gemara says, Utanan nami gabe ksubas ki agavna, there's a Mishnah in ksubas that's exactly the same like the Mishnah over here, because the Mishnah over here said that if he marries her stam, so then it's teitze shelo b'ksuba, she's divorced without a ksuba. And so the Gemara explains, Hacha kiddushin itzrichale. Here, the reason why the Mishnah is here is because we want to teach the halacha with regards to kiddushin. Again, if he's mekadesh her on this condition, and it turns out that she has the nedarim upon her, or she has blemishes, that it's not a good kiddushin. And tana ksuba satu kiddushin, once we're already teaching the halacha by kiddushin, so we teach the halacha as relevant to ksuba, because we're already learning the halacha by kiddushin. And hasum over there, Meseches ksubas itzrichale, the reason why it's being taught is to teach you the halacha that's relevant to ksuba, tana kiddushin atu ksubas, and once we're already teaching the halacha that's relevant to ksuba, so we teach the halacha by kiddushin as well, because we're already teaching the halacha that's relevant to ksuba. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, ha-mekadesh shtei noshim b'shava pruta. Let's say a person is mekadesh two women with something that's just worth a pruta. O isha achas b'pachos mishava pruta. Let's say he's mekadesh one woman with less with something that's worth less than a pruta. Even though he sends her gifts after this. And Rashi says, Sivlonos do ronos shaderech chasen l'shloach larusaso. It was the way of a chasen to send these gifts to his kala. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Amud Beis.